Cheating isn't something that can simply be forgiven. The word forgive feels misplaced when discussing betrayal. Instead, it's something you either choose to accept or reject. True forgiveness implies moving on, but betrayal lingers, a scar that never fully heals. A person who cheats should understand that when their actions are uncovered, forgiveness isn't guaranteed. Some people may tolerate betrayal under the guise of maintaining stability or family, but often at great emotional cost. A real partner, someone genuine, would never condone infidelity. Living with a cheating spouse is like inhaling secondhand smoke, harmful, degrading, and ultimately toxic. If someone is unhappy in their marriage, they should end it with dignity rather than engaging in deceit. Yet, stories of betrayal often follow a familiar path. A spouse caught in fleeting passion sacrifices everything, family, marriage, and years of shared life, for an illusion of love. When the fantasy crumbles, regret sets in, but by then, the damage is irreversible. My mother left my father and me when I was just 2 years old. My dad, heartbroken, never remarried and devoted himself entirely to raising me. Summers were spent with my aunt, who became a surrogate mother figure. When I turned 17, my father passed away unexpectedly, leaving me completely alone. After finishing high school, I joined the military, eventually serving overseas as an artillery instructor. It was during a deployment to Africa that I contracted hepatitis, forcing me to return home for treatment. In the hospital, I met Camila, a nurse whose warmth and charm captivated me. We married soon after and welcomed a son, Dylan. Life in the army kept me away from home for extended periods. Though I tried to make the most of my time with my family, I noticed Camila growing distant. When I was sent on a 6-month mission abroad, communication with her dwindled to a single, impersonal letter. When I finally returned, I was eager to reunite with my family, but the joy was short-lived. Dylan innocently referred to another man, Papa Oliver, as his dad. My world crumbled. Confronting Camila, I learned she had been having an affair for nearly a year. Her justification? Oliver made her feel valued and loved, emotions she claimed I could no longer provide. Her betrayal was a cruel echo of my mother's abandonment years earlier. Calmly, I told her I would file for divorce, retain custody of Dylan, and that she needed to find a new place to live. There was no yelling, no pleading, just a cold finality. As I walked out the door, I felt nothing but numbness. Twice now, the people I loved most had chosen to leave me. Betrayal had become a recurring theme in my life, one that I could no longer bear to endure. I shook my head, pushing away the intrusive thoughts. Time will tell what happens next, I reminded myself. But no matter how I tried, I couldn't hold onto anything tangible. The apartment was state-owned, and we hadn't acquired much else during the trial. Papa Oliver didn't even show up as we left the courthouse. I asked Camila, "Aren't you ashamed?" Of course, I never got an answer. For a while, I lived in an officer's dormitory. Camila wouldn't let me near our son, so I watched him from a distance. That's when I saw Oliver, a young, slim man with a cheeky face that radiated eternal contempt and disdain. "Oh, women, where are your eyes and brains?" I thought bitterly. Then again, I suppose it was clear where. It was tough enduring the sympathetic glances from colleagues, their silent acknowledgement of my situation. No one dared to speak about my divorce. A month passed. Camila showed up at the dormitory one day, her usual fire subdued. "May I come in?" She hesitated at the doorway. "Come in," I replied curtly. I had no energy left for her games. "Our son will soon have nowhere to live," she began defiantly. "They've asked us to vacate the apartment. The only offer we got was a hut in the middle of nowhere. You have an apartment in your city. Sell it and help your child. What kind of man disowns his own son?" She dabbed at her tears and muttered, "Oliver was right about you." I stood up. "Camila, I'll give you 1 minute to leave. And don't ever look at me again." She grabbed her bag and stormed out. 2 weeks later, I came home from work and saw her standing outside with Dylan. She held his hand tightly. "Could you watch Dylan for a while?" she mumbled. "Oliver and I were moving. I'll come back soon." Before I could respond, she looked away and left. I hugged my son tightly. She didn't return. A month later, I was transferred south, and life became a whirlwind. Slowly, I started to open up again. The most important thing was that Dylan was with me. He grew up quickly. At first, he asked about his mother, but over time, he stopped, as if he had understood everything. Camila never contacted me, though I had left my address at the hostel, just in case. It was hard being alone. I even considered remarrying, but I quickly realized no woman wanted to raise someone else's child. People say a man should love an adopted child as his own, but a woman is not obligated to do the same. So I lived alone. When someone new came into my life, I kept them away from Dylan. I didn't want him to feel abandoned again. 15 years passed. Dylan grew into a fine young man and enrolled in a military academy. As fate would have it, I returned to my hometown to head a newly opened military school. I never thought I'd wear a general's uniform one day. Life had settled into a rhythm. One evening, I realized I was out of bread. I didn't bother changing out of my sweatpants and hoodie and went to the nearest supermarket. At the checkout, I saw her, Camila. Our eyes met. She smirked. I see your life hasn't turned out so well. What makes you say that? I forced a tight smile. Come on, it's obvious. She looked me up and down, clearly reveling in her judgment. At least you're not homeless. Her arrogance didn't faze me. I stayed silent, which seemed to unnerve her. Finally, she broke the silence. Dylan's doing well. He's graduating from the academy in 2 years. I nodded. Yes, he is. Before she could ask more, a young man walked up to me. Sir, your car is ready? He pointed to the black executive vehicle parked outside. I turned back to Camila. Her face froze in disbelief as I walked away. 2 years later, Dylan graduated. I attended the ceremony in my full general's uniform. As I congratulated my son, I noticed Camila nearby. She approached hesitantly. I came to congratulate Dylan. You don't mind, do you? She asked. Dylan turned to me, confused. Yes, son, this is your mother, I said softly. I don't have a mother, Dylan replied coldly. The woman who abandoned me died a long time ago. Without another glance, he took my arm. Come on, Dad. We still need to pick up the orders. As we drove away, I glanced back. Camila stood motionless, her hands clasped to her chest, staring after us.